This is Ron Brown again. This video is actually a response to a support question. I thought I would include it in the unique series for HGSI because it is unique. I mean, there are things we can do here that you just can't do in other software programs. Okay, the request was a filter looking for accelerating earnings over the last 3 quarters. Now, HGSI, we can do 2 quarters, but we can't do 3 quarters. But this should be sufficient in most cases. Now, earnings increases as a rule, or the accepted method, is to compare the current quarter to the same quarter 1 year ago, and the previous quarter to the same quarter 1 year ago. But in this instance, we're going to compare the most recent quarter to the prior quarter, and I'll show you how to do this. Now, this is a view that I just put together. It is not available in my files yet for the Insider Club. It will be eventually. But let me go ahead and explain what's going on here. I've already put this together. The filter, I'm calling it current quarter percent EPS increase, and I said greater than 20%, but I've modified that. I'm going to make that 0%. Now, these are the fields. These are standard fields, of course. Last close, 50-day moving average volume. Group rank makes sure that the stocks are assigned to a group. Not always necessary, but in this instance, I'm using it. The EMA fan trend equals yes. In other words, the 18's above the 50, which is above the 100, which is above the 200-day exponential moving averages. And these are the key fields: the percent EPS change, QEPS -1, and why don't I just do this, show you something. This preview feature should always be used when you're building a filter in HGSI. And I'm going to stick to, well, actually, I need to have everything in here. You can see that every field that is added up here in the filter is now down below. Now I'm going to remove a couple of these fields. You can see there are 152 securities in this group at the moment. So if I delete this row, it's recalculating, and if I delete this row, you can see there are 1,130 securities in this group which match the filter. Now, obviously, we want to take that back down to where I was, and I'm going to this is how you build a filter with HGSI. It's very, very easy. I don't want that black body in there. I'm going to do a search for percent EPS, and that takes me to these fields. And I want the percent EPS change QEPS -1. So what it's doing, it is looking back to the prior quarter and comparing it to the most recent quarter, and you can see that that information is in this column right here. Everything is above 0. Now I'm going to add one more field, which makes this even a more powerful filter. I'm going to click on and then I will search for CQIE, which it comes up under earnings, and I'm going to say greater than or equal to 3 quarters. And this particular column right here tells me the number of quarters of consecutive earnings increases. So this stock, ESNT, has had 7 quarters where the earnings increased each quarter. Now I'm going to apply this filter, and I've already attached it to a view. By the way, if you are building a filter and you want to build a warehouse view with the fields that are in the filter, all you have to do is close the filter that you've built and then go up to the Choose Create View. Now this is the filter that I have, and I'm going to make a warehouse view because I'm in the Choose Create Warehouse view. I'm going to make from filter, and the filter that I'm working on is down here. If I click on OK, it fills in the warehouse view with the fields that are in the filter, and then you just build upon that, and that's what I did to create this view. So I'll just go ahead and say OK for right now. It attaches to the filter to the view already, and then these are the fields, but there's not enough in here, so what you want to do is you want to fill this out. You edit the current view, you locate the fields you want, and you just add them over here. So if I want, for example, VPA, and I want the VPA trends, I just add them and then they're in here. Okay, now let me go back to the complete view that I had before. I need to rename this to greater than 0% compared to the last quarter. And you can see that I had renamed the filter, so I need to go back in here. It was not finding it, and I'm using a trend combo, which is in my combos in the Insider Club. So let's bring this back up, take a look at it. Now what this shows in this column is the percent EPS change, QEPS minus 1, or the current quarter minus 1 quarter. And I'm sorted on raw combo, so Allison Transmission Holdings, commercial vehicles, the number has increased, or the percentage of increase quarter over quarter is 19%. And what I'm comparing here is this quarter, or this number to this number, and that comes out to 19% increase from the most recent quarter to the prior quarter. This is a CQ, or the QEPS minus 1, I'm sorry. So it's comparing that. Now, if I take a look at this, it says their consecutive quarters of earnings increases is 4. So if I look at these numbers, and so here's 1, 2, 3, 4. Each number is higher than the prior number. So starting here, 75, 63, 52, and 36. But I go back one more. This number is 27 cents compared to 36. 27 cents compared to 36 cents. So that did not qualify. That's why we have 4 quarters of earnings, consecutive earnings increases. And it also meets the requirements of the QEPS minus 1. In other words, this number, the most recent number, as I pointed out already, is higher than this number, and that number is in this column right here. So we can't do 3, but we can do 2. But by adding the consecutive quarters of earnings increases, that eliminates a lot of stocks too. So I'm seeing consistency. I mean, each quarter is getting better, but I'm really just comparing the last 2 quarters. Now in the filter that I put together, notice that I have a EMA fanned uptrend requirement. And the reason for that is I'm interested in trending stocks. Now this combo, sorting on raw combo, I weighted all of the VPA trends at 33%, and this just gives me a nice sort of stock that are trending higher. Okay, now let's take a look at, let's see if I can find one. Let's look at E-Trade Financial Corporation. Now here's your trend, your fan, I mean, and you can see that this number is greater than this number, so that is an earnings acceleration on there. Now, this 7.8 and 8.3, this is comparing 617 and 917 of, I'm sorry, it is comparing the most recent two quarters to the same quarters 1 year ago. So these numbers are not accelerating compared to the prior quarter. In other words, what I'm saying, this number, 7.8% compared to the prior quarter of 8.3. This number is decreasing, but as far as the QEPS -1, the 55 is greater than the 52. So that's where we get a 5.8% increase with this, or in this column right here. Now, one more thing, let's take a look at the consecutive quarters of earnings increases. They are 3, so 55 versus 52 versus 48, but the prior number, or prior quarter of 916 was 51, and then it dipped to 43. So the last 3 quarters, the actual earnings per share have been increasing, and that's where I get the number 3. I want to modify this warehouse view before I end this video, so I'm going to edit the current view. I'm going to do a search for percent EPS, and I want the EPS change, percent EPS change, and the percent EPS previous, and I'm going to move these up. And what we have here is a comparison of the most recent quarter and the prior quarter to the same quarters 1 year ago. So it's of course totally different than what we see here. So let's look at this stock right here. I'm not familiar with it, but it is showing a earnings increase between the most recent earnings and 1 quarter ago of 37.8%. But you can see that the percent EPS previous, when going back 1 year, it is a negative number. So we're getting some acceleration here between the 2 most recent quarters. And I'll bring this up and point this out to you. So here we go. It's the number's 270 right here compared to 196. That is this column. That's a 37.8% increase. And need to move this chart over. Okay, so the most recent quarter is 88% increase, but that is comparing it to this quarter. So 143 was the actual number, and the actual number for the most recent quarter is 88.8%, and that is the number we see right here. Now, going back to the previous quarter, you can see it says minus 45.3, which matches this number, but what we're comparing is 6/17, or the June 17 quarter, to the June 16 quarter, and that number, it was 347, and it fell all the way to $1.96. So that's your quarter over quarter comparison compared to the same quarters 1 year ago, as opposed to this number, which is the last quarter compared to the prior quarter. And with the other components in the filter, including the fan up, even though this number was lower, but the most recent number compared to 1 year ago was very good, up 88.8%, and then the QEPS number is up 37.8% comparing this number to this number. So this is the way it works. We can see earnings acceleration over the past quarter, and we can are comparing the last 2 earnings dates, and then we can look at the consecutive quarters of earnings increases in this column, which helps locate stocks, or it does locate stocks with consecutive earnings growth over actual earnings growth over multiple quarters. Like I said, I just built this morning, and this is not in my files yet. It will be, but if you want to just pause the video here, you can certainly create this filter yourself and go ahead and get started with it.